Chapter 22. Peter.
The sound of the front door shutting jolted me out of my dreams. While I expected to be naked and started to move to cover myself, I wasn't. My eyes opened wide, exposing my long muzzle. I still wasn't human. I tried my best to stretch out and yawn, which wasn't easy in the back seat of the car. "You aren't back yet?" Brooke asked. We have to go to school. I wanted to talk to you before we left." I jumped out of the car and bounded to her, rubbing my head against her arm. She leaned into me and sighed. I loved to hear her sigh like that. Even though she was right in front of me, I missed her. I missed being able to hold her. "Still a wolf, huh?" Mr. Atkins said from the porch. Millie came out with her backpack. She smiled at me and gave me a wide berth as she made her way to the passenger seat. She was kind, but smart. As much as I liked how familiar Brooke was with me, I wished that she would be a little more hesitant. She should have jumped out the car the moment I turned. But instead she sat there and cried. I was terrified that one day she would trust that it was me when it was really only the wolf in this fur. "Go on now to school, girl," he demanded. "I'll take care of the boy." "Are you sure?" she asked. "I could stay home." He huffed. "I've done it for years. Now get." She hugged me as tightly as she could. It crushed my windpipe a little, but I didn't really mind. "Try to be back to Peter by the end of the day," she said. "We have so much to talk about." The girls drove off, leaving us alone in the cool morning air. It was a pity the temperature would jump 30 degrees or more by lunchtime. I could already feel the heat of the sun piercing through my fur as it rose. "How come you never remembered me, but you remember that girl?" Charles demanded with a chuckle. "I only fed and clothed you for years, but oh no, I wasn't pretty enough for you to remember me." I wanted to laugh, but didn't know how. "Come on, let's get you some breakfast," he said, motioning for me to follow him around the house where he disappeared into the back door. At first, he tried to give me raw bacon. I huffed. "No? I've seen you eat a whole pig before, but now you're too good for this?" he asked. I huffed again. He pursed his lips and went back inside, emerging with a new plate. He threw 2 pieces of bacon on the ground in front of me, one raw and one cooked. I ate the cooked one. He chuckled and sat down the plate of cooked bacon, which had presumably been leftovers made for him and the girls. "You really are Peter in there. I don't know what to make of it." I didn't know what to think of it either. All I knew was that I didn't want to eat raw bacon. The cooked bacon, however, was delicious. "Do you remember Helen?" he asked suddenly, sitting in a lawn chair. I laid down and huffed. "I wish she would have gotten to know you like this," he said. "I wish we would have been able to take better care of you, but we didn't know how. Up until now, I didn't know you could remember being Peter as the wolf. From what Brooke said, neither did you." Better care of me? He did so much for me. I wanted to tell him so. He did more than I could ever thank him for. "Helen would have brought you into the house if I'd let her, you know. She loved you so much. She would have taken care of you, boy or wolf, until her dying day," he said sadly. "She loved me. She didn't even know me. You may have thought it was me, but it was all her. She was the one who made the care packages of food and clothes. She was the one that started calling you Peter. She bought a deep freeze and packed it with meat for when you were the wolf and stored years' worth of non-perishable foods for when you were the boy. She would have done more. It was never enough for her to love you from afar. I kept her from you, Peter. I was afraid of you. You hardly remembered me when you were the wolf, and you wouldn't get near me as the boy. You have to understand that I loved that woman. I loved her more than I ever thought I could love anything in this crazy world. I wanted to protect her. Now, I feel like I kept the most important thing to her just out of arm's reach. If I could do it all over again, I would have done it differently. I never should have kept the two of you apart. I failed her, and I failed you." I stood up and huffed angrily to tell him no. I wanted to tell him he was the one who taught me how to fish. I saw him come to the river and narrate every step he did as if I weren't watching. I saw him leave extra traps at the river when he brought his home. He was the one who trekked through the woods and stapled my packages through the forest, always on pine trees so I would know where to look for them. He was the one that towed the camper to the middle of the woods with a side-by-side, wielding a chainsaw to clear the way. I was grateful to Helen, absolutely. But I was grateful for him, too. He nodded to me, as if he knew everything I was thinking, and we sat in silence until he fell asleep in his lawn chair. The sun was directly overhead when I heard the crunching of rocks as a car pulled into his driveway. It woke up Mr. Atkins, who looked at me with concern. It was far too early for the girls to be home. He ran inside to look out the window, then back to me. Go hide in the barn. Don't let them see you. The police are here. If they come that way, go out the back and hide in the woods. Don't come back until I whistle for you. I slinked back toward the barn and jumped on an old, moldy hay bale to see out the window. There were 3 cars in the driveway. Charles's, an officer's, and a random one I had never seen before. Brooke got out and held out her arm for Millie. Millie made her way around the car and folded herself in her arms. They were both crying. Something was wrong. They needed me. The officer shook Charles's hand and he motioned for him to come inside. I had to know what was going on. Brooke needed me. She was in danger. But she didn't need the wolf. She needed Peter. The hay felt scratchy on my hands and knees, and I realized I had hands and knees again. I cursed at my nakedness, still unable to go inside. There was nothing appropriate in the old barn that I could use to cover myself, just some rusty tools and rotten wood. If I strolled in there with only those things to hold over myself, I doubted it would make anything any better for Brooke. After what took entirely too long, the 2 cars finally pulled away. Shortly after, the trio emerged from the back door. I need some clothes now, I yelled back. Please? Brooke smiled and ran back inside to get some. She started to sprint to me when Charles stuck out his arm to stop her. Easy, killer. I'll take in the clothes, he said, grabbing them from her and hobbling in my direction. The girls stayed by the house and held hands. Here, he said, tossing the clothes through the window. I grabbed them and hastily started dressing. What's going on? I asked in a low voice so the girls couldn't hear. Their mom passed, he said. That was an officer and a social worker. They came to see if I was an appropriate guardian for them. And? I couldn't stand it if someone took them away from me. I am. Once I had the clothes on, I ran past him to Brooke. I noticed he was holding shoes for me, but I didn't slow down or turn back to grab them. I closed the distance between us as quickly as I could, enveloping her with my arms. She let go of Millie and held on to me desperately, as if she were drowning and I were her only hope of survival. Charles patted Millie on the back, set the shoes down, and led her inside. Once Millie was out of earshot, Brooke began sobbing. Her wails wrecked me. I held her tighter, as if my touch could keep her together. The last thing I said, she sputtered. The terrible things I said at the shelter. She knew you loved her, I assured her. She also knew she was wrong to cheat. She knew you loved her, I assured her. She also knew she was wrong to treat you the way she had. It's okay for you to be mad about it. You can be mad and love her at the same time. I'm mad at her now, she said, wiping her eyes. I feel like she's selfishly abandoned me. Again. And this time it's forever. My heart was broken for her. I would have crawled over broken glass to take her pain away, but I couldn't. I know nothing is really different. I was always on my own to raise Millie, but now I truly feel it. I feel the weight of the responsibility. I'm all she has, she said, her voice so broken and defeated that it hurt me physically. I will be right here, I assured her. I will do everything I can to help you and protect you both. She nodded. Charles said that too, but you don't love Millie like I do. You don't know how much it truly weighs. I love you, I said, surprised at how easily it came out of my mouth. And you don't know how much that weighs. Millie is a part of you, and I would die to protect her. For you. She grabbed my shirt with both hands and pulled my face down to hers. Our kiss was strong, passionate, even desperate, but brief. Too brief, but I didn't push it. She rested her head on my chest and wrapped her arms around me. I love you too, Peter. I kissed the top of her head and held her as long as she let me before following her inside to comfort Millie.